for coming back and coming to what we think is our festival of the home.
It's amazing.
Great space. We also met on Friday with PLL, and I can guarantee you're going to be stuck to your seats for the next 15 minutes or so. Very riveting presenter. A lot of interesting personal life experience to share with you. So, without further ado, I hand the floor over to Melina.
Yay! You didn't say 50 minutes, 5-0, right? Okay, good. I was like, 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk really fast. We're going to speed through. So before I start speaking, I'd like to just sort of give a little bit of background as to how I teach, because everyone teaches very differently. First and foremost, I want to stress that anything I say is my opinion, obviously, right? It is my experience. It is based on what I have seen and observed and gathered over the past however many years I've been doing this. It's been probably almost 3 decades, I think. All that is to say, take everything I say with a substantial grain of salt, especially if it does not resonate for you. When we're sitting in chairs and we're all looking forward, we sort of have a reflex that we're like in school mode. This is not fucking school. This is just like a middle-aged plump pervert talking to you about middle-aged pervert shit. Okay, so I am not the master authority here on this topic. You know who the authority on this topic is in the room? It's you. You are the person who knows best and most who you are, what you want, and where the fuck you are going. So anything I have to say might be helpful to you, or it might not. So that's all I have to say about that. If at any point you have any questions, please do raise your hand, and I will come back to you as soon as I finish my train of thought. I have menopause issues. If I stop to try to answer your question, we will be talking about geese in Canada within 10 minutes, because that's how my brain works. So I promise I will get back to you. I acknowledge, and just hold on for a moment. So, class, here we go. The reason I teach this class is because so many people come into kink and come into BDSM and come into themselves sexually with a lot of excitement and a lot of energy and not a lot of knowledge and not a lot of self-assessment. And one of the things I started noticing as I got involved in kink and BDSM is that it's a lot like high school. There's different cliques. There's the cool kids. There's the kids with all the gear and the cool shit, and you're standing there in the corner with like your little tiny bag lunch, and they're over there with like an entire bento box of magnificence. Does this sound familiar when it comes to BDSM and kink, right? All of the social anxiety, all of the pimples, all of the feeling like you're the only one who's ever been in this position ever. So there's really a lot that even as a grown-ass adult, there's a lot of work that you're going to have to do in order to truly enjoy this scene and this community. And my personal belief is the why we are here, why your fetishes are your fetishes, why you want to do what you want to do, why you consider yourself to be a top or a bottom or a switch, or why you have no idea what the fuck you're supposed to be doing and you're just sort of floundering around. But diving into yourself and seeing what the answers to those questions are is one of the most valuable things that we can do as kinky people. And I want to stress, this is not for newbies. This is also for me. As I said, I've been doing this for probably longer than some of the motherfuckers in this room have been alive, because now I'm old. But I still stop and ask myself why, very frequently, like this morning, as I'm trying to get ready to teach my class. And my beloved spouse meister, who I call spouse meister because it's my spouse as well as my master, is calling me 17 times because he's like, my flight, my luggage, my daughter, my this, my that. And I'm just like, absolutely, sir, I will help you with this. I'm putting down the phone, like vibrating, like, my God, oh, why am I fucking doing this? Why am I doing this? Why do I? And then I stop and I take a deep breath and I'm like, because ultimately at the end of the day, it gets me horny that I can solve his fucking problems. There's my why, okay? And that why helps me to fucking survive the bullshit. And so when I encourage people to find their why, this is why. Because you're going to become jaded. You're going to get tired. You're going to have the scene that makes you question yourself. You're gonna fuck up. And if you don't know why you're here, those fuck ups, that pain, those stumbles can be roadblocks that are impossible to overcome. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if you know why the fuck you're here, those moments of depression or sadness or confusion, those relationships that make you feel like maybe you are not who you thought you were, those people who suck your soul away, you can take a deep breath and say, it's not about that. It is my journey. This is me. This is mine. I own it. And if you know why you are here, it's going to be so much easier for you to take that and own it fully. Top, bottom, switch, puppy, dog, pony, worm, slime ball, whatever the fuck you are. Baby dragon. I just met a baby dragon last month. I know. It was too much. I literally had to be like, don't pinch their cheeks. Don't pinch their cheeks. All I want to do is be like, oh my God, because they were so adorable. So the why. Here I am. When I first came into the leather and kink and BDSM communities, I came out in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had started my explorations when I was still living in Los Angeles. And luckily, I happened to be fucking a rocket scientist at the time. And so he got me online. And at the time, the internet was like a green screen and prompts that you had to type in line by line fucking code. It was unbelievably awkward. But the thing is that scientists came up with this way to communicate their shit together. And so science was the first thing the internet was for. And the second thing the internet was for was what?
Oh,
Yeah. And this is like, it's not even an exaggeration, because like the first perverts I met were scientists who had utilized this brand new technology that they were building and created to flirt with each other and hook up. Right. And so they were like, you need to come and get in on this. I'm like, I think I do need to come and get in on this. And I had had an amazing experience. And I'm going to give the very short version of this. Basically, when I was living in San Francisco, when I was living in Los Angeles, I met a guy. He had an accent. I had a weakness. I've been working on it. So don't you guys try to come whispering in my ear thinking that I'm just going to instantly get wet. I'm better now. But at the time I met this hot English guy, he was not a very polite man. There was a lot of like grabbing and throwing and choking, whispering in my ear, and ass beatings. And the thing is that my reaction to that the next day was to buy him cigarettes, get his laundry, get his coffee, drive him to his sound check, and then wait while he did his sound check so we could go back to the hotel for more of the ass beatings. I didn't call the police, even though I thought that that's probably what I should do. I was like, he just beat the crap out of me. I should call the police. Or get him a coffee. And what was amazing was that my assumption, because I had no why, my why was that guy. My why was, I have discovered the one human being who fully understands me, who knows what I need. And if I don't hang on to this motherfucker, I will never experience this amount of joy again. Thank God I figured it out. Because he turned out to be kind of an asshole. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. But as I started exploring and I started thinking to myself, why was this so fucking hot? I have had kinky sex before. I was a weirdo in high school. My high school boyfriend and I used to go to the Pink Pussycat Boutique in the West Village and buy dildos and handcuffs and all of this shit. So that wasn't new to me. Weird sex was not new. What was different? Why was this inspiring me so profoundly? So we started having phone sex, and the phone sex got dirtier and dirtier and more expensive, because it was like the mid 90s, the early 90s, and you know that was like $1 a minute. I'm sitting there just like, gotta come really fast. So I look around, I was like, I got $20 this month, man. And one day, one of the fantasies he wanted to do, he's like, you know, I want to do be really hot. I want to pretend you're my slave. And I was like, oh, no, see, this is how it always goes. They're just waiting in the wings. Every Caucasian is just waiting for the moment they can just be like, and now slavery. I'm like, you fucking, you colonizing bastard. How dare you? And as I'm getting ready to rip into him, he's like, nah, forget it. You'd be a terrible slave. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Hold on. If I were a slave, I would be like up in the house. I would be like the super fancy slave. I would be like the awesome, cool slave, not like in the field picking cotton and shit. And he said, nah, you'd be in the kitchen. You'd kick over the milk pail and say, oh, master, I seem to have spilled the milk. And I was like, okay, that shit's fair. So then we had what was the filthiest, most disturbing, most politically incorrect phone sex in the history of mankind. And I hung up the phone and I was like, I'm going straight to hell. Not only am I going straight to hell, I'm going straight to hell, and the ghost of Dr. Martin Luther King is gonna fucking show up and be like, we did not march on Washington so you could masturbate thinking about submitting to some white man. And I'm like, but Dr. King, it's so hot. So I started writing porn. I started writing very dirty letters to this boy, and they got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And when I finally had sunk to the depths of feeling that I was genuinely suffering from some sort of mental disorder, I shared this porn with a friend of mine in order to get someone to tell me to my face, you're fucked up, get help. I just wanted someone to be like, get help. I just, you know what I mean? Like, you want that punishment kind of, you're British, you guys know. So I show this to my friend who's like super, like, man, what is it when people hate men? Misandrist, super misandrist, lesbian, separatist, living like, you know, like black fucking rage to the nth degree. And I'm like, this is the bitch, yes. So I told her what it was, and she was like, why are you showing me this? I was like, I just need some help. I just need someone who I know is gonna like give me the real. She's like, all right, I got you. 2 a.m. I get a call. I pick up the phone. She's like, girl,
help.
You need to get out of my head. Is what she said. And I was like, you don't think it's terrible? She's like, oh, I didn't say that. She's like, this is the most fucked up shit I ever read. And it's hot as hell. And at that moment, boom, light bulb. It's fucked up and it's hot. Yeah. The idea that we need to reject an aspect of ourselves because it is terrifying, because it is ugly, because it is grotesque, because it is scary, is wrong.
Transgressive.
It is transgressive, and transgression is erotic often, right? The reality is what turns us on so often is not the in the dark missionary position sex strictly for reproduction. I try to invite people to be perverts, right? Like I taught like a lecture for a bunch of non-kinky people just about negotiation and consent. And I was like, has anyone ever held down their partner's arms above their head and been like, yeah. And everyone raised, pull the hair, flip them over, call them a dirty name. Congratulations, you are a pervert. Welcome. Your ring is in the mail. I invite you to be kinky, even if it's not to the extent of traveling around the world to talk about kinky shit. But the reality is, once I understood that transgression was part of my erotic landscape, I was able to start to free myself from the burden of bearing the weight of hundreds of years of slavery that was between me and my erotic satisfaction. And the reason I actually helped to start get past that was that when I was feeling really horrible about my fantasies, and I said, I don't think I should do this. I don't think I can do this. A friend of mine said, so you are going to not do a type of sexual thing because you're black. How is that not also racism? And I was like, oh shit, I'm racisting myself. I'm allowing myself to fall into the trap of thinking that I need to live my life for someone else. And I decided to try to stop doing that. And so when each of you are sitting and thinking about why the fuck you are here, what you are getting from it, what is the fucking point? What is the point of kink and SM for you? Why do you want to do this? And for some people, the answer is as simple as I enjoy the sensation. That's it. I'm not saying that there has to be some deep psychological reason that goes back to your childhood that you need to figure out, but there might be. I'm not saying it needs to be this complex soup of emotions that you pull from, but it might be. What's critical is that you know to the best of your ability so that you are grounded. What I want for each of you is to feel so good about being a pervert that nothing can shake you. That the winds of time will not bother you. That you are just like, I am a pervert forever, transcending dimensions. Da, da, da. But that comes when you are feeling good and confident and grounded in who you are. And this can be very difficult to obtain, right? Because many of us come into the scene. How many people came in and did their first scene knowing what their identity was? Top, bottom, switch, sub, whatever. Came in, you were like, this is who I am.
Both.
Yeah. So here's the reality. Some people know. Some people like coming in, doing the thing. When I came in, I knew exactly who I was. Oh, yes. I was super slave and uber masochist. Dun, 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 dun. Ready to go. So I jumped right into the most hardcore situation I could possibly find. Like a full 24/7 formal leather household with like multiple slaves where you had to slave in the house and train formally for a year before you could even be considered for a color. And at that point, maybe you would then be accepted into the household. I set as many barriers for myself as I could because as a recovering gifted child, I have to, of course, do the most. Guess what? That identity that I went in with is not the identity with which I stand in front of you today. There have been modifications. But the reality is, I gave myself the ability to choose and explore. Labels, top, bottom, dominant, submissive, switch, are there for you to utilize. So many people think, I don't want to be in a box. You're not in a fucking box. A label is just a way for someone to say, top, bottom, switch, maybe we can do a thing, maybe. Mm-hmm. It is helpful. Please don't feel trapped by them. Please also don't let other people label you. Especially because they're going to want to. Especially because a lot of people see who you are and think that they know what that means. They take a look at your behaviors and they assume this person is doing X, Y, and Z. They must be a submissive. I was at a convention years ago and there was this hot dominant that I had been like too shy to even talk to. And at one point he comes up to me and he starts chatting. I'm just like, oh my God. I'm just like, but I'm being cool. You know, I'm doing my little thing, whatever. And after like an amazing 45 minutes of conversation, not even about kink. It was about theater because he knew I was an actor and was like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then he leans in really close and I'm like, here it comes. And he's like, it is such a shame that you're a dominant. And I was like, you know when your brain does that thing where it's like, oh, okay, no, that was fine. That's fine. I said, well, you're in luck. Because I'm actually not a dominant. Da-da-da, ta-da. And the sort of like 18 expressions that crossed his face.
How did it come to that conclusion?
We did not play. It did not work out. Yeah. Because at that point he was like, oh, well, he just started stammering. Like, had he slid right into the like, oh my goodness, and gone back to his charming previous thing, we could have salvaged it. But instead he sort of stammered and lost it and was like, well, you don't present like a submissive at all. And I was like, so I'm supposed to like kneel and crawl around to flirt with you, the person I just met? What am I supposed to fucking do? Like, I went instantly into this like, rah, and then he gets defensive. He's like, well, this is what I'm talking about. Right? And I'm like, dude, look, I am a submissive. I'm not your submissive. So until we have negotiated something, we're humans, bitch. Talking, motherfucker. So it didn't work out now. But this is the problem. This is the issue. And it's so universal. I'm sure it happens here, where there's a particular idea of what submission looks like, where there's a particular idea of what dominance looks like, where there are behaviors that are associated and affiliated with roles. Here's my question to those people. If you walk into a pub and you see one person sitting across from another person, and the first person is cutting up the food and serving it mouthful by mouthful to the second person, who's the dominant?
It's hard to tell.
Is it the person who is sitting and receiving the food at their leisure? Could be. That could be a thing a dominant could do. Or could it be the person controlling the portions of the other person? They am deciding when the other person eats. It's intention. All of these things are about intention. There is no dominant or submissive act. There is no dominant or submissive behaviors. Come on, come in, come in, come in. No, don't apologize. Come through. Welcome. There are no behaviors. There are no acts. There's nothing that is intrinsically dominant or submissive. It is about mindset, attitude, and intention. And it's also about what you need. So many folks come into the scene and they don't know what they need. Take a moment. I was given an exercise by a dominant that I was considering because I felt after my first submission, I was like, I'm in consideration by this dominant. Maybe I should put that bitch in consideration. Maybe I need to consider if I'm going to submit to them. Perhaps my opinion is also vital in this equation. And so I started doing the shocking act of saying, I am putting dominance into submission. Well, you're never going to find one with that attitude. Good. If there's a person who wants me to give my lifetime and energy to them and they do not understand that they must also come correct, I'm not going to submit to that person, period. And that is my opinion. I was at a convention years ago, and the gentleman who was producing the convention was a Marine. Right? Marines, pretty tough, pretty well known for being hard asses. So he comes and greets me at the front door, and he's very like, got his own military thing. He's like, Melina, good to see you. And we're talking. All of a sudden, from the other side of the lobby, I see this woman come walking in. She's clearly looking for someone. And I hear from across the lobby, sir, why all the blah? And I'm just like, what is going on? She comes booking across the fucking hotel lobby, straight towards us, stands in front of me, and she's like, hello, Melina, good to see you. She's like, sir, the chairs are not in the dungeon. What is happening? And I'm like, who is that? And he's like, I'm going to get to it. And she's like, we have an hour before opening ceremony. She's tearing into him because he did not do what the fuck he was supposed to do. And I'm just like, damn. And then she finally turns to me and says, good to see you. I'll see you in a bit. Storms off. She's like, and I look at him and I'm like, who was that? And he's like, that's my slave. I was like, inside, but I was like, oh, really? I said, that was a fascinating dynamic to observe. And he's like, she's French. And I was just like, wow, whoa. It blew my fucking mind. Because at that time, the idea of yelling at your owner I was just like, how, why, what? No. So I saw her later that night, and I'm trying to figure out in my head, how do I say to her, what the fuck? Without saying, what the fuck? So we started chatting, and I found it was just like, observing your dynamic was fascinating to me. It's a little bit outside of the box of what you typically see. I'm wondering, and she's like, everyone complains. They think I am not a good slave because I have to do what I have to do. She said, he is a Marine. If I am not yelling at him, he does not pay attention to me. And I was like, you know what? That kind of actually makes sense. So here's the thing. Their dynamic worked for them. Anyone looking at him and thinking that guy's a pussy because he's letting his slave yell at him, you tell the Marine he's a pussy. Go right ahead. I'll get some popcorn for everybody. I will supply you all with snacks because, woo-hoo! Bad idea, mon frere. And this is the thing. And that interaction, seeing that, gave me hope. It gave me hope that somewhere there was the owner who was not going to put me on a vocal restriction because I was too sarcastic. The owner who was not going to make me kneel in a corner for an hour because I had been too prideful in my service, because I was showing off as I was doing tea service. I needed the owner who was going to live up to what I had been given as a gift from other women who identified as slaves who went before me, which is the following knowledge. That is your identity. submission, slave, owner, dominant, master, puppy. These are your identities. They don't shift because of where you are. You can turn off the lights and I'm still me. Whether or not you see it, I still am here and I still exist. And my identity is vital. And so this is why I stress to people, know who you are. Know who you are today. It might change tomorrow, but know who you are today. Because if you don't, if you're floating around, if you're thinking you're just going to attach to the next sexy person, it's going to leave you adrift because it has to be about you first. One of the first things that I learned from my first household when I was first studying submission, because it is a study for me, it is a practice, was something called the Prime Directive. And if you're a Star Trek fan, no, I'm not talking about interfering in pre-warp cultures. I know. You can do that all you want, apparently. But the Prime Directive, as it was taught to me, is the following. I will say it twice. It is the slave's primary responsibility to protect the property at all times, up to and including from the master themselves. It is the slave's primary responsibility to protect the property at all costs, up to and including from the master themselves. Isn't that elegant? Because for those of us who tend to be martyrs and tend to think that slavery and submission is about pushing ourselves until we break, it means that you are in violation of your agreement to your owner if you push yourself until you break and they don't know. What my first dominant said to me was, if you don't tell me you have a problem, how the heck am I supposed to know? I am not psychic. You need to tell me. And that way I can make an informed choice. It doesn't mean I'm always going to acquiesce. If I give you an order and you prime directive and say, sir, it doesn't mean I'm going to say, oh, okay, fine, and give you a foot bath. But it does mean that now I know. That's why there is a check engine light in the car. This is why on airplanes, what did they tell you about the mask? Put your own on first. Because you can't help that kid who's turning blue next to you if you fucking passed out. I am not an efficient slave or submissive if I'm exhausted and I push myself beyond. And this is also true and vital and critical for dominance. This sometimes gets left behind. Exhaustion, boundary violations, pushing too hard is not purely something that only submissives do. Dominant also can fall into this trap. So make sure that you are checking in with yourself. Make sure that you are also whole and centered on who you are. What time is it? 2:29. Do I have to stop? I'm stopping. No? When do I stop? Quarter to? Okay, yes. Okay, breath. Whew, ha, ha. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Right.
You had a question?
Yeah.
All right, hit
I'm
me.
very viral, aggressive, masculine in my normal life. But I'm a self. And some people have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because of my color culture. Because the stereotype is black male heterosexual. I have to play the trope.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to negotiate sometimes.
Do you feel as though the difficulty is your difficulty, as in it's hard for you to make that switch, or the difficulty is from other people?
I think it's from other people.
Yeah.
I try to be myself, but people have a picture.
Yes.
You know, you got muscles, you're heterosexual.
This is how you're supposed to be.
This is how you're supposed to be. So I get on Fat Life and I get a lot of abuse a lot. Because I'm not the typical bull. Whatever that means, you know. Sorry.
No, you don't, please don't apologize, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And I wish I had something easy to say that would be cheerful, but the reality is that there is an imbalance.
Imbalance with what?
An imbalance when it comes to perception versus reality. Yeah.
A lot of stereotypes.
Yeah, there's a lot of stereotyping. And this is just what we face. Do you know what I mean? There's some shit that I would love to say is going to be easy to deal with.
Yeah.
But as a person of color living in a world that has been built and designed and is currently controlled by people with skin privilege,
Yeah.
That shit is just going to be the shit that we have to put up with, unfortunately.
So you have to be the aggressive stereotype.
No, you have to be who you are, and you have to have patience. Because you know what will happen? The person who does see you is out there. And if you shift who you are, I'm getting super emotional, I'm sorry. If you change who you are, you're going to miss the person who is for you. And I'm crying because I'm crying for myself as well. Because I did that. I did for years try to become the perfect slave. And you know what happened? Pain.
Yeah.
And when I stopped and I said, I'm just going to fucking be me. It took 17 years for me to find my owner. I didn't stop living. I had amazing relationships. I had a great time. And I stayed in my integrity on my own. And it sucked sometimes.
I mean, it's got so bad that I had to curtail or change my profile.
Don't stop. If you were asking my advice, go back to who the fuck you are. Because the person who wants you needs to see you. They need to not see the bullshit that you are putting on top of yourself because of the demands of everyone else. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to be authentic, and it sucks. And it hurts. But I'm telling you from my own experience, when I have gone and I have said, I'm going to be the quiet one in the corner kneeling. I'm going to be the one who silently puts down the fucking teacup. I'm going to be the one who is the perfect ideal of the slave walking 3 steps behind to the right with my eyes downcast. With my energy so contained that no one even knows I'm in the room. I'm going to do it. And that broke my fucking soul. Okay?
It's difficult.
It's like you're saying, he's changing for what the person wants him.
Correct.
But he needs to be himself.
Correct.
Because if he's not himself, the person who's going to find him isn't going to find what he wants.
Yes.
Let me tell you, this is exactly correct. And there's a beautiful short story by Ray Bradbury. He has a collection of science fiction stories. And one of them is called The Martian. And the short version of the story is there's a colony on Mars of human beings. And there's a woman who is, in her backyard, and suddenly she sees her son who has returned from, the wars on Earth or whatever. She goes to greet him. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're back. And so she runs into the village and says, oh my God, my son is back. And another one's like, my husband just returned from the wars. Something like that. So, then suddenly all the people in the village are realizing that there's people who they've missed in their lives are back. The son who went off to war, the daughter who ran away from home, etc., etc. And so they're going to throw this huge party. Everyone gets together. Suddenly someone's like, oh, there's my husband. Oh, there's my son. Oh, there's my niece. And all of a sudden this person starts vibrating and shifting and melting and falling apart and then dies. And they realize it's not any of those people. It's one of the Martians. It's an alien. And the way this alien survives is that they become who you need. But it could not do that for everyone. And so it perished. Right? I read this story when I was like 7, and it fucking changed my entire goddamn life. Because as a child who was one of those kids who did change constantly in order to be who her mom needed, who her dad needed, who anyone needed when I would go on an audition for a commercial, I needed to be the best and most awesome child actor so I could get that job. Because what was on the line for me was, could we pay our bills next month? That's how intense my going out for an audition was when I was 7 years old. That was what was on the line for me. So when I say you have to stand in who you are, in your integrity, otherwise you risk destroying yourself.
Isn't it funny that it's okay to accept gender imbalance, male top, female, the hierarchical system, change the system, but then if people eroticize their pain, i.e., women are in normal society, the patriarchal system is eroticized.
Which is hilarious because
Then
who's squeezing like basketballs out of their coochies?
Thank you. So I have had a problem where people have a problem with me because I seek out white female doms and I'm black male.
Fuck those hoes. Unfuck those hoes. Not fuck those hoes. They don't deserve fucking. Unfuck them.
No, I've had pictures that have taken down.
I know.
Because
it doesn't. I'm not trying to cut you off, but we don't have much time. And I want to say to you.
Sure.
No. Be who the fuck you need to be.
Okay.
Stop adjusting.
All right.
Stop adjusting. Because the more you adjust, the further you are away from the woman who will really see you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My owner does not care if I'm sarcastic. My owner is amused when I yell at him. He thinks it's hilarious. It is his own problem because he is an emotional sadist, which you think is funny until you're like, oh my God.
I'll just say one thing. FetLife is both a lovely place and a cesspool.
Yes.
Yes, people come there to date.
So if you ever find someone in the cesspool, use the block button, don't engage. It's not worth the energy, not waste time. I literally have a zero tolerance for that place.
Yeah.
Somebody says something that's, even on someone else's picture I don't like, block. Don't even talk to them, don't engage.
Block it, yes.
I don't want to see that person. I just want to filter the whole thing out. So that's the best thing I would say to you. It's both
Right,
great
thank you.
and a cesspool.
Yes. Thank you for, I'm so not on there. I don't even, I'm just like, oh yeah, it does suck. I forgot that part. That life sucks. But this is going to be true for everyone. One of the exercises that I received from the dominant that I was engaged with before, my current owner and master, gave me an exercise to do that was incredibly helpful, and I recommend it to everyone. He said, because he, on paper, initially was completely disqualified automatically from having a relationship with me. I was like, you're long distance, you're super poly, extra married, and you have already so many other women in your life, like there's no room for me. I don't like wiggling into a table and sharing space. I'm very greedy and I take up a lot of fucking room. And it took me a long time to accept that about myself. And I'm not going to rewind that shit. And he said, okay, will you do an exercise for me? And I'm like, fine. And he said, please make a chart of these three things: your needs in an MS relationship, your wants in an MS relationship, and your desires in an MS relationship. And I'm like, fine. Put my things there. I made a little chart. I was like, okay, here we go, chart. My Excel spreadsheet. It needs lines. I'm going to put some lines.
Please send me to the black border on it.
Yeah. And I sat there for like 10 minutes like, what does this even actually mean? So then the phone rings because he's one of those spooky motherfuckers. He's like, how's it going? I'm like, you know how it's going. So I said, what the fuck does this actually mean? He said, thank you for asking. He said, this is how I'm defining it for the purposes of this exercise. Your needs are the baseline core gotta have in order for a relationship to start at all. Like you meet someone, here like the things you're looking for, boom. If this doesn't happen, you're not even having a conversation about a relationship with this person. That's the needs. The wants are the things that keep the relationship going. In a long-term relationship, what are the things that you gotta have long-term in place in order to keep things rolling? Okay. The desires are the extra little nice bits. Sort of the thing like, it's not a deal breaker. You're not gonna miss it if it's not there. However, this would be nice in a relationship. So for example, my needs were humor, respect, and attraction. The person needs to be funny. If someone doesn't have a sense of humor that I get immediately, I'm like, get the fuck out. I can't with you. That's a basic first thing. Second level thing is, for example, someone with a curiosity about the world, desire to travel. Like someone who's like typical American, didn't get a passport till they were in their 30s. I was just like, I was like, yay! That's important to me, right? Like long term, I'm not the person who's like going to be like, I'm content with living in one place forever. I'm like, no, we got to see shit. We got to talk to other people. We have to travel the world. I don't know. Second part, so that's like the continuous thing. It's going to be damaging to the relationship long term. The desires, I was like, well, I don't desire things. I really do like accents. I really do. So that would be nice, I do like motorcycles. I don't like driving them. I like, riding bitch on a fucking motorcycle is one of my favorite things. That'd be nice. If the person is like, I never rode a motorcycle, will I not date them? No, absolutely not. But it's a nice little thing. Bonus. So what that meant was, when my current spouse Meister wrote to me on OkCupid, which is how we met, yeah, he was able to, it has been worse. I was able to know I already had my little checklist in, and I had put some of those things in my ad. And so when he wrote, he was like, I am from Austria and I travel a lot for my work and I do have an accent. And I was just like, I should have been more specific. Because I was like, oh, the German accent is not. I'm just like, sorry, Germans, but like, you're not hitting me on the sexy button. Except for like the really transgressive sexy button. Like, you have to go through a whole arc of transgressiveness before like the German button is the sexy button. That's all I'm saying. I was relieved to discover though that the Austrian accent is actually different. It's a lot softer and it's actually very cute. And so I was just like, oh no, this. Yay! So that was instrumental in me finding what I wanted, and I strongly recommend that for people. And do it every once in a while. Do it on a per scene basis. What do I want from this scene? We tend to just grab a paddle and start whacking. I was like, someone's feeling called out. But the question is why? Why? Why the fuck do I need to get my ass beat today? What is it for? And again, it does not need to be a fucking essay. It might just be like, I just need a bruise on my ass. Can you provide it? It can be as simple as that. Or it can be, I have had a friend pass away and I need catharsis. Or it can be, I am healing from some damage from my childhood and I'm reliving this in a new way where I take control at the end of the scene, control I never had as a child. Those are very different spanking scenes, aren't they? They would look exactly the same. You would not be able to look at those scenes and know what was going on really. And this is the gorgeous, delicious texture of what we do. It is so profound if that's what we want. It can be a silly, goofy, fun moment of joy and laughter, or it can take you to the darkest hole of your soul. And then you got to climb the fuck back out. And this is why it's vital for you to know who you are going into that scene. Because then you can fully become and fully play and fully manifest who you are, because you're like going in with the knowledge. I'm going in to heal. I'm going in to laugh. I'm going in to explore. That intention is very vital and very critical, I believe. And it can really make your scenes fly, and it can really put you into a place where you are fully in charge of and in alignment with your real needs. Your real needs, not what someone else has said they want, not what you think you're supposed to be because this is how DOMs are. Fuck that. Fuck that entirely. My owner and I are running for a title because Americans can't get enough of fucking titles. There's we have like Miss San Francisco Leather, which I was, International Mr. Leather, International whatever, and they're master slave titles. And typically you see people with the formal thing and standing and the 3 feet behind and the eyes downcast. And we don't fucking do that, which is why we're running. He takes medications for his psychological issues and manages to somehow still own a slave. Isn't that remarkable? He has lots of shit in his past that he struggles with. I am frequently the stronger one. And he said to me when he was like, I want to run for the title, and I had promised myself I would never run for a title again. And I was like, oh, okay, sir. Exactly. I was like, let me talk him out of this. But then he said, I want people to see how my slave cares for me when I am weak. I want people to know that it's okay to be a master if you are human and you need help. And I was like, fine, we're running, fine. Okay, fine, I guess we have to run. But this is the reality of it, is that because he got to the place where he knows that my love and my submission to him is unshakable, regardless of where he is emotionally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, because I love that motherfucker. because he has given me the life and made the place for my service that is perfect for my service. He had a me-shaped hole in his life, and I managed to step into it. That is what we want to share. And if I had not taken 18 years to know what I needed and had the strength to wait, not alone, I had entire beautiful relationships in that interim. The exercise that I told you about doing the needs, wants, and desires, that was given to me by a dominant with whom I had a relationship for a year and a half, a great relationship. I dated several people through those years. It wasn't like I sat on my own, but I stayed in my integrity in terms of what I needed. And this is why knowing what you need is incredibly vital and important and at the core of getting your shit. You're not going to get it until you know what it is. And then the person will step into that place. You know that whole, like, when the student is ready, the master will appear shit? That shit pissed me off. Someone said that to me when I asked them. I was talking to a master I do respect, one of like 3 white men who can talk to me about some shit. I don't listen to them very often. I'm like, y'all fucked everything up. I'm done. You need to be bringing some serious wisdom before I'm like, okay, fine. And he is one of them. And when I was speaking to him about this, this was his thing. And I was like, really, Master Skip? When the student is ready, the thing. And then I had one of these moments where my higher power was like, hey, you know what, Mo? Let's take a look at the past 25 years. Let's see when you were ready. Now? Oh, no. Here? Or you're still an active alcoholic? No? All right. Here? When you finally got sober and you're getting your life together for the first time in 35 years? No? Okay. The realization that I had was I needed to have this life experience before I was in a place where I could serve the way I wanted to. And I needed my owner to not be married to someone else in Germany. It's not just when the student is ready, it's also when the master is ready. And when both of us were ready, we were both in the same city at the same time on the same website looking for the same thing. Isn't that a remarkable miracle? Would that have happened if I had compromised? Would I have gotten to the point where I was not just ready for this relationship, but ready to bear the weight of a very intense master-slave relationship if I had not fucking stayed in my fucking integrity the whole fucking time? I don't think so personally. And I want that for each and every one of you. I want you to have the relationship that is best for you where you are. I want you to be seen. I want you to be appreciated and loved for who you are. I want you to know that your needs, your wants, and your desires are valuable and valid. I want you to understand that whatever you seek in a relationship is right. I want you to know, like truly, really know that that person or those people, if you're one of those greedy poly motherfuckers, and you need like 4 people to fulfill your shit, they're out there for you. You'll get them. And I'm not saying this because I'm some cult leader promising it. I'm saying it because that's my life. I've seen it over and over again. When people stay in their integrity, their needs get met. They find the people who truly see and truly need them. My owner needs me. Like, seriously. I do. And the reality is, I need him. My karma is such that I need to have my space that full. And I'm happy about it. I'm joyful about it. I'm delighted that I'm also allowed to complain about it because that's also who I am. That's what I tell him. I'm like, I'll do it. I'm going to bitch the whole fucking time. And he's like, go right ahead. Because the shit gets done. And that's what's important to him as my master. He loves that shit. The more I complain, the more he's amused. Questions, thoughts, stuff. You came in here ready to hear this thing. I didn't say it. You're going to walk out mad. No, everyone's perfect. You are perfect, of course. Yes.
Just thank you for making it okay for tops to not be okay.
Yes. Tops do not ever have to be okay.
Because I'm not.
I really, and thank you for acknowledging that, because again, from my perspective, I have seen over the years so many people who identify as dominants and tops. I had a woman, a friend of mine, who was a professional dominant, and she had a slave that she'd had for many years, and then their relationship broke up and she was looking for a new slave. And she said to me, I can't be who I am. I can't be weak. I can't be the master with migraines 3 or 4 times a month. I can't be the master who's like, I just can't put on the boots today. I just can't be the dominatrix in the leather and the whip that you want because I'm in pain and I can't even have light in this room. And she said to me, literally, I cannot, because if I share that, if I'm human, I will lose my business. Because in her business, she has to be that, because that's her job. But at home, that split, that dichotomy was really rough for her. And I cried on the fucking phone. I was like, how are you going to find a slave who's like, you need like a nurse. And believe me, there's plenty of goddamn nurses. I don't know about here, but the proportion of like people in healthcare in the scene in the US is weird. Someone passed out of the dungeon and literally 7 nurses were like, get me out, get me out. It was amazing. And lawyers, all the lawyers. Yes. Librarians are usually the tops though. The lawyers are almost always the bottoms. Yes.
I just had a very quick question.
Yeah.
I've had previous experience where I had a dom who relied on me a lot for a number of tasks, which
Yes.
we negotiated, but then his mental health took a turn and sort of relied more on me, and I was trying to like get him to see like external resources, like a therapist, mental health professional,
Absolutely.
Medication, getting like support.
Yes.
How is like the best way that you found, or like you can advise to like enforce that sort of boundary? Because you can't save someone else if you're drowning.
No, you can't. This is the prime directive. This is protect the property. And so this becomes about the person doing the things that need to be done. Here's like, if they didn't have a slave, what would they do? What would they do? You don't have to answer that, but that's my first question. What would they do if you were not there to help them? Right? Those are the things that should be done anyway, right? So then you say, okay, now you have a slave, now you do have someone to assist you, but that does not remove the responsibility for those things from that person. Do you see what I'm saying? They're there to help you. I am an amazing executive assistant. I've been an executive assistant for very high profile, very powerful men. And they fucking listen to me when I stomp in the office. I'm like, fucking sign this. But if they still don't fucking sign it, whose responsibility is it? No, it's not mine. It's theirs. It's their responsibility. It's my job to get them to sign it. But if they fuck it up, if they're just pushing it to the side over and over again, I'm like, fine. You can blow me off. And then when you're like, where's my $8,000 refund from the travel I did? I'm like, oh, really, Steve? Now you want it? You should have fucking signed it. So the thing is that you are there to do a job. The boundary is, it is their responsibility to provide you with the resources, space, time, energy, and capacity to do that job. And if they do not, you prime directed the fuck out of there. Goodbye. Because it's not your responsibility to fix them. It can be your responsibility to assist them in fixing themselves. Does that make sense? And to me, I think that that's very reasonable. I personally think that that is fair and reasonable to say, you are my resource, I will utilize you, but then you do not get to abuse the resource beyond where the responsibility needs to be on you as the fucking adult. Yeah. So that's how to draw a boundary. Because boundaries are for us, right? Boundaries are not for other people. You know, this is the reality. A boundary is your fence for you to guard. And if someone else comes over, you can't just be like, you're on my boundary. You have to enforce it. And kick them the fuck up out and be like, good, electrify the fence a little bit. Oh, God, yeah. Punishing them with the awesome shit. Don't pee on that electric fence, or pee on the electric fence. So I think I do have to wrap up. I think it's actually gone overtime. I still 5 minutes. Oh, awesome. Questions, thoughts?
Not really.
All right, fine. Do we have one more question before we wrap up? No? All right, then I'm gonna plug my shit. Melina Lee Williams Haas, If you go to kinkdoula.com, you will see my brand new website. I am offering services in terms of yammering someone. If you want to like talk to somebody, I'm not a counselor, but I am a good listener and I have excellent advice.
Thank you.
And I offer myself for that. I'm also having a one-day intensive on July 8th in Birmingham. See, I said it even the right way. And if you register today, you will get a deep, like over 50% discount. I think, is this a thing people should take?
Just take one of those.
Yeah, take one of these. You can register for the intensive. You can also grab one of these cards if you want for information about my services as Kink Doula on kinkdoula.com. Thank you all so much for coming. It was really my honor and my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon and to be able to talk to you.